I played at a festival in Sweden, and they have the wonderful beer, and I like beer, and I had to go to the bathroom, and it was the porta johns like they have at festivals.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping around, and I get behind Ray Brown, who is playing in, and he looks at me and sees that I have to go to the bathroom so bad, he let me go first.
Welcome to episode 44 of the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. Lakin Basses, founder of Lakeland Basses, Dan Lakin has a new company, and I'm honored to be a part of the D. Lakin family. I co-designed a 5-string fretless with Dan and his design team. That bass is the Inspired by Ryan Roberts bass, the 5-6035. I spoke with Dan last week, and that bass is off being routed and painted at the moment. I can't wait to share that all with you all when the bass is complete. Dan is also doing a bass giveaway, and the first prize is your custom bass. First place winner will connect with Dan and the design team, and they will build you the bass of your dreams. Stop by www.dlakenbasses.com to learn more about how to enter. Also, check out Dan's Amp Shop. 5 brands you can't get on Sweetwater or at Guitar Center: Demeter, Trickfish, DNA, Gensler, and my personal favorite, Epiphany. All products have a 30-day guarantee, and Dan will pay for shipping both ways. Check out www.dlakenbasses.com to learn more about Dan's bass giveaway and Dan's Amp Shop. www.dlakenbasses.com. Double bass players, everything for the double bass. Head to lemurmusic.com. I've been a customer of Lemur Music since I started playing the double bass, and I'm honored to have partnered with them. I'll be talking more about that shortly, but in the meantime, check out their online store for accessories, strings, sheet music, and more. www.lemurmusic.com. LEMUR music.com. All right, I get emails and messages frequently from folks wanting to study privately with me. The Bass Shed website is dedicated to the artistry of bass legends and how we can broaden our stylistic vocabulary by learning and analyzing the work of these legends. But I've been teaching privately since I was 17, and I've recently carved out a little bit of time to take on some new private students. I regularly get asked, and recently actually, about music theory, about reading, about jazz solo concepts, about pentatonics, about some pentatonic pairing things, which gets into like upper structures of the chord. My personal approach to teaching privately is we'll study whatever gets you and keeps you excited about playing the bass. Drop me an email at ryan@thebassshed.com or head over to the Bass Shed and click on the private lessons page. I have some details there and offer a free trial lesson when you schedule your first one. So again, drop me an email. Let me know what you've been practicing. Let me know what areas you'd like to grow in, and we will start a lesson plan that is catered specifically for your personal goals. Go to thebassshed.com/private-lessons, and let's get started. David Hood is a legendary session bass player. He was the bass player in the Swanmpers, which was the house band in Muscle Shoals at Fame Studios. Then they went on to Muscle Shoals Sound Studio. And then there was kind of a split, right? So they kind of split from Rick over at Fame and went and started another studio at 3614 Jackson Highway. That was the kind of the title, the sign on the outside of the building. He's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about what that studio is up to now. He's going to talk about what Fame Studios is up to now. He's going to talk about some of his most memorable sessions. He's going to talk about some that were, a little bit more tricky. He's going to talk about some of the road work he did, why he preferred the studio over the road. It's an absolute honor to connect with David. I was a huge fan of that music, obviously. Still am a huge fan of that music. Huge fan of the documentary when that came out. I thought it was a documentary that was really well done. And I remember watching it like 2 or 3 times, like kind of in a row back in the day. Like I was obsessed about it, and I was telling everyone about it. Yeah, it's I kind of geeked out. I was a little bit of a fanboy talking to David. It was absolutely fantastic for me to spend time with him and have a chat and get to learn more from his career and more about him as a person. So without any more setup and me blabbering, here is the bass icon, David Hood.
We're technical geniuses.
Oh, this stuff confuses me.
Yeah, it does me. And I've done it several times, always with someone else.
Yeah.
Turning things on.
Yeah, good for you. I wish I had an engineer to just do this for me.
Yeah, well, my wife is my engineer.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What's your wife's name?
Judy.
Judy. Hello, Judy.
She's left the premises.
Yeah. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Nice. Good, man, this is an absolute treat for me. Thanks for doing this.
Well, Dan Lakin has helped me in a lot of ways.
Cool.
Besides supplying me with basses, he's also been a good friend to talk to. And so here we are.
Yeah. No, Dan's fantastic. Dan's fantastic. How did you meet Dan?
To tell you the truth, I went to a music store in Nashville. This has been many years ago, looking for a 5-string bass. And I tried everything they had. And the one I liked the best was the Lakeland.
Yeah.
And so I told them I liked it. They said, okay, well, we'll see if we can get you a deal on it.
Okay.
2 months passed. All of a sudden, somebody calls me and says, this is Dan Lakin, and your bass is ready, and we're going to send it to you. And I thought, damn, I didn't buy a bass. And it turned out he just sent it to me so we could use it in an advertisement.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's cool. And when on the back page of the Bass Player magazine, and when the advertisement came out, there were 50 bass players on there.
Okay.
All these tiny pictures. And so that's how we met. You know, him sending me a bass, and then later I went to a NAMM show in Nashville, and we got to meet then.
Cool.
And now he's made me a D. Lakin Swanper model bass, and it's I love it. It's straight out of the box. It plays great. I haven't had to do a thing to it.
That's great. That's great. He's building me one too. He's when I forgot how I met him. I think I met him. He had heard the podcast, and then we connected on social media somehow. And now he's building me a 5-string fretless.
All right.
Which is not, Dan. Dan is not a 5-string guy. Like for him personally. And he's not a fretless guy. Although he's told me he wants to get into playing a fretless himself.
Yeah.
But he's a meat and potatoes 4-string guy, which is fantastic too.
Yeah, and I have it, that one 5-string. I had a Padula years ago, and I sold it, and then I got a G&L, and I hated it, but I used it on some records, but it was like playing a log.
Yeah.
And so I got the Lakeland, but I rarely use a 5-string. I don't have a need for it in my world.
Yeah. Right. What was the session you were doing the other day? I think when we started emailing, you said you had a session earlier this week, maybe.
I'm trying to think which one it was. I've done several like 1-song sessions, and I think this is one of those. And I hate a 1-song session because you carry all your stuff, 1 song, you're done. But things are, because of the pandemic, everything is slow and change. And but I don't even remember what it was. There was no famous guy or anything.
Do you still work with the guys from the Swanmpers, or you guys still always travel as that group?
I'm the only one who still plays.
Really?
There was 4 of us originally when we started our studio, and Barry Beckett, keyboard player, and Jimmy Johnson, rhythm and guitar player, have both passed.
Okay.
And Roger Hawkins, the drummer, is in really, really bad health.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Congestive heart failure. He's on oxygen.
Wow.
I don't think he's left his house in several years except to go to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I've talked to him this week. He's in pretty good spirits, but he can't talk anytime without having to do his oxygen. It's a shame. I work with a lot of people here.
Yeah.
None of the original Swanmpers, I'm afraid.
Oh man. I rewatched the documentary last night Obviously knowing I was going to be talking to you.
Right.
How did you feel about that documentary?
I thought they did a great job in that, and it was not strictly about us. It was Rick Hall,
Yeah,
uh, of
a
Fame
lot.
Recording Studios,
Sure.
and I owe him my career. I mean, he's responsible. He and a few other people in town, the guys that produced the first Percy Sledge recordings,
Sure.
hired me to play on the follow up and all the rest of the music that Percy did. Other than I didn't play on When a Man Loves a Woman, but I played on everything else.
Uh-huh.
And so they came and got me. I was doing demos or something at Fame, and they came and got me and said, "We want you to play on Percy's next record." And that was 1967, and all of a sudden I'm on a gold record, and more people start calling, so I had to.
Sure.
I had to learn how to play. I mean, before that I was in copy bands and frat party bands and that kind of thing, but I was starting to do some studio work.
How old were you at that time? How old were you in 67 when you played the Percy Sledge record?
I was born in 43. So
okay, so that makes you
23.
23, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And about that same time, I played on Tell Mama with Etta James, and some Picket Things, and Aretha Franklin. I was playing trombone on the first Aretha Franklin record. So, but that was one of my first gold records, was playing with Aretha Franklin on "I Never Loved a Man," which was her first hit.
Sure. Now, when you guys followed, well, I have questions after watching the documentary. I have just some bass questions. We'll get there.
Yeah, I got all the time in the world.
What age did you start the bass, and did you start on trombone or did you start on bass?
I played trombone in the high school band. And,
okay.
When there was recording going on around here, so I said, "Well, look, I want to play."
Yeah.
And I played James and Bobby Purify's "I'm Your Puppet." I did the trombone.
Yeah.
And so I started getting a few calls for the trombone, but I started playing the bass at age 18, which is pretty late.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of catching up to do because everybody I was playing with had been playing for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to learn quickly, and I'm still learning.
yeah. Join the club, man. We all are. So at 18, that would have put, I'm trying to create a timeline here. So at 18, that would have been 1961.
Yes.
So then the electric bass is still relatively new. Did you play upright at all? Or were you right into electric?
I went straight to electric. I had friends in bands, and I borrowed one of the guys' precision bass and brought it home. And I ordered my first bass directly from Fender. The guitar player in the band that I played in, his father repaired radios and TVs in their kitchen in the evenings.
Okay.
And he printed up some stationery, said Hamby's radio TV service, and sent it to ordered Larry, the guitar player, a jazz master, and me, a jazz bass. And it was the first one in town, and it was had the concentric knobs.
Yeah.
It was before they did the 3-knob thing, and I still like that setup. But he ordered it. It cost me $180 with the case. So that must have been about half price, or half the retail price.
Sure.
And I played that until 1973, and it was stolen when I was playing with Traffic in New York City.
Oh man, right? Because you toured with them. You were on tour with Traffic, yeah.
Yeah, 72 and 73. Roger and I toured with them, and then 73, Barry also joined us.
Okay.
And, so that was my introduction to the big time, I guess, playing big stadiums and that kind of stuff.
What did that feel like for you to now be playing the stadiums, even though you'd already played with all these famous people? So it wasn't like you're going to be star shocked by the artist, but having these big crowds is way different than sitting in the studio.
Gosh, that was terrifying. Because some of the places that we played had more people than my hometown.
Yeah.
And in the auditorium.
Sure.
And but we got on. We, like you said, and I reiterate, we played with all these different recording artists, but I'd never really done any big tours until we got with Traffic.
Yeah.
And that was really eye-opening and terrifying at first, but we got where we could do it.
Yeah.
It took a few gigs. We were used to having chord charts and being able to see and
Right.
everything. And you get on stage with things like that, the lighting is crazy and you can't see.
Yeah.
I made all these little bitty chord charts and couldn't see a thing, couldn't hear, so loud. But we eventually got it.
Cool.
We did two good years of tours and stuff. They've got a video of Traffic playing at the Santa Monica Civic Center
Okay.
in 1972, and I'm playing that original bass. I'd taken the finish off of it and stained it with some furniture stain and played that, and it was stolen 73. And it just broke my heart because I'd never played another bass. I went to Manny's and got 2 jazz basses, and in 73 they were completely different.
Sure.
It was CBS, and they were terrible. And I played that till 76, and then I got an Olympic bass at Manny's.
Oh wow. Okay.
I was a regular at Manny's, and so he said, "Well, I got something to show you." And it was the Olympic bass, and so I played that Olympic bass on nearly everything I did from 73 till sometime in the 80s, and still would be using it. It's just I've had some shoulder problems, and it was a really long neck.
Yeah.
So I didn't use it so much.
Okay.
But after that, I got a Philip Kubicki X Factor. And I really loved it. And I watched this, what is it, Reverb, the thing where they sell all these instruments. I've never seen a Kubicki bass on that. And you see all these different kinds of basses they sell, but I've never seen a Philip Kubicki. And I've only seen a few in person, a few people who.
Where are those out of? Where were those manufactured?
I think they were California, but he has died. But for a while, Fender took over the production of those basses, and but I think he got the rights back to make them. But he has passed on, and they're very rare now. It's one of these basses that has the headstock. The tuning knobs are back.
Right, the no headstock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a strange looking bass, but it was really versatile. I still got it. It's really versatile tone wise. It was active or passive. And I really like it a whole lot. I rarely use it so much. Just I'm playing more of the like a jazz bass with flat wounds now.
Sure.
And that's what people seem to like. Recording, I do what they want me to do, and that's the sound they're liking right now.
Cool. So now in 61, who are you listening to be influenced as a bass player?
Well, Duck Dunn, of course.
Yeah, sure.
And he became a friend.
Okay.
James Jamerson, like everybody else. Paul McCartney.
Okay.
Just what was on the radio and what was in the recordings.
Sure.
And I'm not the most fancy bass player or anything, but I've always concentrated on getting a really good sound.
Yeah.
And working in the studio like I did, I was able to usually have a really good sound. Never been a fancy player, but I've got a good sound.
I mean, I think that's so important. I just spoke with the family of Bob Babbitt.
Right, I knew Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about some things. I talked to Bob's brother, and I talked to his son. And we talked about just approach. And I really think like players like yourself and like Dunn, Tommy Cogbill.
Oh, yeah.
Like all those guys, like you have Jamerson, who's like the genius of the electric bass. It was such a new instrument. He's doing all these fantastic things on it. But even to be hired as a bass player, even now, still, people want me to play like yourself, more of just a relaxed.
Yeah.
You, Babbitt, Duck. Like that's what singers still want, no one hires me to do the Jamerson thing.
Right. Me either. They want me to play the basic bass.
Yeah.
Not anything fancy. No popping and slapping.
Right. Now, when that hit the scene, when the slap hit the scene in like the 70s, did you get into it?
A little bit. I had recorded with Archie Bell and the Drills at our studio here in Muscle Shoals.
Mm-hmm.
And their bass, I went to see them live, and their bass player did that. It was the first time I'd ever seen anybody do that.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even anywhere like what it is now. But
Sure.
I think the guy that played with Sly probably was one of the first ones to do it. But
Larry Graham,
I didn't know what he was doing then. I just, so the guy that played with Archie Bell was the first person I ever saw do it. And I thought, well, that's cool. And I did it a little bit, but it was really what people wanted me to do.
It was not what they wanted you to do.
No, they wanted me to play just like I'd been playing.
Sure.
And
that's great.
I'm 77 years old and I still get called to play, and they want me to just do my thing.
That's perfect. That's like the most rewarding compliment ever, is just be yourself.
Yeah.
And get paid to be yourself. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I work with an engineer who has a studio here, and he likes, and there's some players around here that are really good players, but they like me.
Yeah.
It's because I play simple and it's a good tone.
Sure.
And I can work for the rest of my life, I guess, just doing that.
That's it, man. That's it. What happened? I have so many questions. What happened to that studio after you left Fame and you and the Swanmpers started your own studio? What happened to that studio?
Well, for a while, we were there, I think 7 years, something like that. And we were running out of space. We were so busy that we found another location here in town, down on the river. It was an old Naval Reserve training center, sort of like a National Guard armory or something.
Okay.
We bought that and put two state-of-the-art studios in there. And at that time, it was 16 track, but then soon went to 24 track analog. And
this would have been the late 70s, right? 7 years later would have been like 78, 79?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And we stayed there until we sold the place. And the old original studio just fell into disuse. Some people tried to use it as a studio and never made it.
Yeah.
Eventually, it became a place where they sold used appliances, refrigerators. But since then, since the documentary, Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine saw the documentary, and they said, we're going to rescue that studio. And so they gave us some money to restore our old studio on 3614 Jackson Highway.
Okay.
And it looks like a studio in 1970. It's perfect. It's,
really?
Analog. It looks great. It's operational, but it's a tourist attraction.
Okay.
And we've had it can be a studio, but it's more of a tourist attraction. And we've had thousands and thousands of visitors from around the world go there. I could go there now and there'll be somebody there from France or from Canada.
Yeah, right. I heard they did that with Hitsville too in Detroit.
Yeah.
They turned it into a museum.
Yeah, and it's fitting nowadays.
Sure.
The way studios are. It's still hard to beat those old studios, but nowadays people do it in their bedroom. And
yeah, of course. Yeah, it's the technology is so easy to come by and easy to use that.
Yeah, but Fame still is operational, and it's a pretty popular studio. Partly because of its history, but also because it's a good studio. And there's several other studios in town around here that I work at. Our old studio, it's not really set up to be a 24-hour-a-day studio, so it's more of a tourist attraction. But it can be used as a studio.
Okay. When you go back into those old rooms? What's it feel like for you personally to remember all the records you did and all the people you worked with that are, some of them maybe still with us, some of them that have passed on, but you're a part of this iconic move of American music. And what's it like for you to go back and revisit those spaces?
I've had an amazing career, and I never ever expected to do what I'm doing, even part-time. I just never expected to have the career I've had. But when I go into Fame, they have these posters all around the wall. Etta James, Wilson Pickett, Aretha Franklin, all these people I've worked with. And I think, and I'm working with, here I'm 77, I'm working with guys who are late 20s, early 30s. I don't even open my mouth because they wouldn't believe. It's just almost like you're either bragging or you're making it up or something. So if they know about my history, that's great. But if they don't, I'm not going to bring it up.
Okay.
Because working with somebody that much younger than me, you don't want to come off like I know everything.
No, sure. But at the same time, it's fact that you were
Oh,
there and you played bass on those records, and it's not bragging. It happens.
I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, that's great.
My wife and I were going to the chiropractor this morning, and I turned for some reason my satellite radio was not working in my car, so I turned it to FM, and there was "I'll Take You There."
Yeah. What's it like when you hear it on the radio?
I love it.
Does it take you back to the session? Like mentally?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I remember those sessions very well because we loved the Staple Singers.
Yeah.
When we started working with them, they were still a family gospel group.
Mm-hmm.
Pops was in the group. He was the leader of the group. Mavis was kind of like the lead singer, and then her two sisters were backup singers. And I could picture so well being in the studio with them because Mavis is just a couple of years older than me. I think she just turned 80 or 81. So it's just a few years older than me, but we had a lot of fun. I made them some brownies with pot in them, and they had to hide it. They had to hide it from their dad.
Yeah.
So a lot of those, when I hear those records, it takes me back. It really does.
That's
I have
awesome.
a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with Traffic. I did a lot of work with Glenn Fry, Bob Seger. I've worked with all these people, and other than the records you hear, when we were in the studio, we were just a bunch of young guys working or people working, making records, and you become friends.
Sure.
More or less. I just saw where Paul Simon sold his publishing. Can you imagine what money he would get for that?
I don't think I heard about that. I remember hearing about Bob Dylan selling his publishing, whole catalog.
Yeah, well, Paul, I just saw it today. Paul Simon has sold his publishing catalog. I can't imagine how much money that would bring. It would have to be a lot. He sold it to Sony.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of money, and it must have been a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, I didn't know about it. Did that just happen today? Or
yes.
Within the last 2 days? Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard about that yet. That's crazy. I'm gonna read on that because I remember reading about the Bob Dylan, and it was a huge amount of mone. And,
right. I don't know. I don't think Paul Simon's would be that much, but I bet it's up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Of all those sessions you did, which ones still stand out as some of your favorites?
Well, the Staple Singers, I think. And with Bob Seger, we liked Bob, and he was our age. His sessions always seemed really easy.
Okay.
But the music was easy to play. Some sessions I did, it was hard. I had to really work my ass off to do some of it. But Bob's were always easy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who would have been hard. There were some of the rhythm and blues sessions I did. Some of them would be really difficult. That come down from Detroit. One producer in particular is named Don Davis, and he produced Johnny Taylor and some other for Stax. And he would bring this keyboard player or a couple of keyboard players down from Detroit, and they were ruthless. I mean, they come up with these hard parts to play, and you try to learn them, and then you play it with them, and then no, you change that, and that some of those were really difficult. And I don't know if any of those that were so difficult were hits.
Yeah.
I think the better stuff is usually the stuff that's easier to play.
Sure.
And easier to listen to.
Right. Because it was just a more natural thing, and that comes across even to the listener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I worked with it was my dream to be a Beatle, but that didn't ever happen. But I love the Beatles music and still listen to it a lot. And,
did you ever meet Paul?
No, I didn't. I came close to meeting Ringo. I forgot now what the circumstance was. I think we played on. I played on Klaus Vormann's solo project, and Klaus was the guy who did the cover for Revolver, and he was a bass player and a friend of the Beatles, and he cut an album a few years ago in Memphis, and he asked me to play on it, which was
cool.
It was a lot of fun, but I think Ringo and Paul were both on that album. I just weren't with them
Okay.
at the time.
Okay. Because your career has had so many highlights, and you just going to the studio, on any given day would be a normal person's absolute career highlight. What are your biggest highlights? Because it seems like every day you're working with an iconic artist, you're playing on a hit record, some things that most of us will never do. And you were doing it regularly.
Yeah. I guess the most recent big artist I've played with was Sheryl Crow. I'm on her latest album.
Okay.
And out of the 12 or 14 songs, I'm on 2 of them.
Yeah.
And one of them, I'm with Joe Walsh.
Okay.
But she's got all these great people on her album. She just, everybody wants to play with Sheryl Crow. And so I was a little bit nervous at first. And nowadays,
you were nervous?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Nowadays, with age, my hands don't work as well. I'm worried that I worry that I'm going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I have a shoulder problem now. I've torn my rotator cuff on my right arm for the 3rd time.
Oof.
And they barely fixed it the first time. They fixed it the second time using cow tissue to supplement my.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I'm going to have to do something again, and it's going to require a shoulder replacement.
Oh, wow.
And I'm dreading that because that means I'll be out of commission for maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
And every time I have some situation where I can't play, I think, well, this is it. I probably won't ever play again. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but I'm waiting to see if they can, what it's going to take.
Sure.
But it's going to take a shoulder replacement more than likely.
Man, that's nuts. How did you tear your rotator cuff?
The first time I just slipped on some ice.
Okay.
Got my arm spread out, caught myself, and I hurt it.
Yeah.
And it hurt, but I thought, well, I'll get over this. I didn't know what a rotator cuff was.
Sure.
After a while, it was hurting so much. I went to a doctor, and he told me what it was, and he tried to fix it arthroscopically, and he couldn't. It was too badly damaged, and so he did. We tried, and it didn't. It lasted about a year, but I had to have it redone. And that's when they put the cow tissue in it, and that has lasted till now. So it's lasted 10 years or so, I guess. But that's my fear when I go in the studio, is whether or not I can do it physically.
Do you feel? I tore my rotator cuff. It had happened in a car accident back in 2003. And do you ever feel it get tight when it's cold?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I did that, and I stretched a ligament or a tendon or something in my knee, and I still feel that get tight when it gets cold. And did they have you do that exercise where you have to walk your fingers up the wall?
Yeah. The chiropractor I went to today told me I needed to keep doing that. I've got these rubber bands I use. Okay. And I've lost a lot of upper body strength, and now it's hard to pick my bass up, put it in the case. Yeah. And so I'm looking at some physical problems that could stand in my way of stopping my career somehow. Wow. I played with the Water Boys, which are an Irish band from 74. I was 74. Anyway, several years ago, I started playing with them, and we were in Norway, and I slipped in the hotel room and fell and broke my left wrist. Oh. And so I couldn't play. I had to come home, and that took about 3 months to get over that, and it still hurt. Yeah. And it was a Norwegian lady, the doctor, and a nurse. One of them got one end of my arm, the other got the other end, and they just pulled it till they got it straight, and then wrapped it up. Said, "See ya." That was it. And so when I came home, I went to a surgeon here, an orthopedic surgeon here in town, to get him to check and see if it was okay. And he said, "Yeah, that they did as good a job as anybody can do." Okay. But it hurts. It's cold here today. Yeah. It was like 44 degrees or something like that.
During the day or overnight?
In the morning, this morning. Okay. And that's cold. That's cold for here.
Yeah. I mean, that's cold for anywhere.
Yeah. My wrist is hurting today.
Oh man. So do you do warm-ups or anything before you play, or to like strengthen?
Yes, I
Yeah.
try to just kind of exercise my fingers and get it, play. I used to play so much, I never practiced or anything because I was playing all the time. But now I
Sure.
have days when I don't have a job.
Yeah.
And, it never occurred to me to play when I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
But now I need to. I have to warm up.
How was when you were in the studio, kind of on that topic, when you're playing all the time and you weren't practicing, how did you keep from having the bass lines sounding too much like each other when you're cutting these records after records after records? How were you able to come up with new ideas and have your hands fall into different patterns and shapes, and
Well,
without everything sounding the exact same or being influenced?
back in the good old days of our rhythm section, it was the same four guys with
Sure.
either an extra guitar player, lead guitar player, or extra keyboard player. And so you get ideas from all the different people. You get ideas from either the songwriter or the singer or whoever, and you just build on that. I think that's what. Luckily, the songs aren't all the same.
Sure.
And it's, some of the stuff I play, I've been playing for years and years. It's the same old stuff. It's with a different singer or different words or something.
Right.
I got to meet Leland Sklar the year
Okay.
before last. I played out in Canada. Gosh, where was that? On the west coast of Canada.
Vancouver.
Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
We played there at a big festival. It was September before last, and I got to meet him. And he and I were both on a panel talking about our career and everything. And I had always loved his playing.
Sure.
I really loved his great. He's a great player, and we did we kind of parallel careers in a way that we worked for all these different people, but didn't play the same stuff or anything. And I enjoyed that. He seemed to enjoy meeting me, and I really enjoyed meeting him.
I got to meet him maybe about, I don't know, 2018 maybe, at the Troubadour.
Yeah.
And it was cool to meet him there, because like that place has so much LA history, and it's Lee Sklar, who's just been around forever. And
oh gosh, well, he's a really nice guy.
He's a sweetheart. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'm a Facebook friend or something. I don't know exactly. See, I'm not really big on all that, but I do follow a little bit.
Sure.
But I always loved everything he did, and I like the artists that he recorded with. They're doing this immediate family now. He and Craig Clergy and some of the other guys that were in that rhythm section, and that was who was playing in Vancouver. And so I got to watch them play, and then they watched us play. And of course, when I was playing, I was having to play "Tell Mama" and "I'll Take You There" and all these old hits.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad to play those things, but I like to play new things. I don't want to be an oldie. I don't want to be an oldie goldie guy. But when I play live now, that's more or less what I'm doing, is playing all that old stuff.
Sure.
I'd rather play new stuff.
Yeah, but I'm doing it too, man. Like I was up in Seattle over the weekend, and I had to play your bass lines. like we're all playing that stuff. But you were the guy who came up with it.
Well, by the way, my son lives in Portland.
Okay.
So he's not too far from Seattle.
Yeah.
My son and I don't play together that much.
What's he play? What's your son play?
Well, he's in a band called the Drive-By Truckers.
Okay.
And it's kind of an alternative country rock kind of thing.
Okay.
And they're good. They have a big following. They've probably done 12 albums or so.
Oh, wow.
None of them huge hits, but they're very popular live.
Yeah.
And I don't play with him that often, but we did a thing in Seattle at a theater in Seattle. I don't remember the name of it now, but he and I thought, gosh, I don't know how to play with him. I don't know his song that much. Yeah. And so we found some guy there who played drums. I said, just keep a beat.
Yeah.
So we could have something more than just him and I. And it worked. It was good. I'm used to really the studio is my life. I'm not a big live player, and I I don't really get nervous, but it's like extra work to have to go back and relearn that old stuff.
Right.
I'd rather do new stuff.
Sure. What's the new stuff you're listening to?
Well, I listen to Spoon. They're a favorite group of mine.
Spoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where they're from, but their records are really good. I listen to everything. I have satellite radio, and so I listen to the new alternative stuff. I still love R&B. It's just nothing like it used to be out there.
Absolutely. How do you feel about that? Like I do want to hear your thoughts on what R&B has become, because you were such a part of creating it. You were on the ground floor there.
Yeah, there's a few current artists that kind of remind me of that. I can't think of anybody's name now, but there are a few that still kind of do music like that. But I don't really care for rap.
Did you ever check out any of those Jamie Lydell records?
Who?
Jamie Lydell.
Oh yeah.
Like he's got a really strong understanding of the history of soul and R&B in his music. Him. Yeah.
I'm trying to think the name of an artist that's out now, a black singer. I can't think of his name, but he's one of the few that have that kind of older style.
Okay.
Keeps it fresh. The reason I went to play with the Waterboys, I did a session with them in Nashville. We did an album, and I enjoyed the music. It was a rock music, but not old timey rock music. It was kind of fresh at that time. And so they said, well, would you like to do some shows with us? And I said, well, I think I would like to, because I was bored. I was doing a lot of things around here in the studio that just weren't really exciting at all. And I thought, well, maybe at that time I was 74. And I said, all right, this may be the last time I ever go on the road, so I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I did for about 2.5 years, and I was in 18 different countries, some of them several times, and it was exciting, and I enjoyed it until I fell and broke my wrist. But I think I like for it to be interesting or something. I like it to be a new challenge, sort of, and that's the reason I did that. Because a lot of the music I play on around here, they're either kind of country demos or just singer-songwriter type stuff.
Where are you at right now? Are you in Nashville or are you in Muscle Shoals?
Muscle Shoals.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the Tennessee River out here in front of my house. And there's some decent studios here. And every now and then you work with a good artist. A lot of times you don't. A lot of times it's who comes in the door.
Sure.
Some of those people aren't all that good, and the music is not that challenging. But it's what I do, and I get paid for it.
Yeah. Now, when you're going to, I think, like you were kind of just talking, you were bored and you wanted to do something different. I think all musicians, whatever they're doing regularly, they always want to do the other thing. Like, I know if I'm playing like a lot of upright, well, like I want to play electric now. If I'm playing a lot of R&B soul stuff, well, now I want to play like a musical theater show or something. I just want to do something different to shake it up. When you're going to the studio every day and you're playing with the same guys, how would you keep from burnout? How would you keep from getting just like, these guys again? I know what they're gonna play before they're gonna play it. I'm sitting in the same damn chair. I'm doing the same thing. How would you keep it fresh for yourself?
I don't know, really. I do it, and I do it a lot of it with the same musicians. Yeah. Even though it's not the Swanmpers, it's another group of studio musicians who are really good. Some of them, I'll definitely say world class players. Mm-hmm. I don't read music, for one thing, and so we do these number charts. It's been called the Nashville number system, but we were doing it before I ever heard that term. Okay. And it's when you do a studio work, the artist will come in and say, well, it's too high or too low. We got to change the key. Yeah. And with the number system, you can do it instantly. And if you're able to play it, you can do it in any key. And so the number system has always worked very well for me. Mm-hmm. As long as I've got other people who can do that too. I've tried to teach it to my son. I've tried to teach it to a lot of the younger groups growing up. Nobody wants to learn. But
No, I mean that's a thing just in general. Nobody really
yeah,
wants to learn. But you didn't even have to read bass clef with trombone? Even
yeah, I
like
did.
okay.
I did. Never great, but I could do it. But I haven't done that in years now.
Sure.
I don't play the trombone anymore,
Okay.
and I'd be very slow writing or reading a part, and I can learn it just in
Yeah.
30 seconds. It's I think that's been my problem with learning to read music is my ear is so good I can hear something one time and usually play it.
Sure. Yeah. And like is your retention good? Like I have a hard time with retention sometimes. If
Uh,
like I hear her play a song, I don't necessarily remember what I just heard her played.
yeah, that's why I wish I did know how to read music better. It's because sometimes there'll be a specific line and I know it and played it, but then time has passed and I go back to it. I think, damn, now what was that?
Yeah. Is Rick still around? Did Rick pass
No,
away?
he passed away about 3 years ago. His son and his wife run Fame, and they stay fairly busy for a small town recording studio.
Sure.
And Muscle Shoals has got such a great name.
Yeah.
It opens doors in Nashville or nearly anywhere, and so
Sure.
a lot of people want to come and record here just because of the name.
Yeah. Are you friendly with his son and wife? Are
Yes.
you guys can
Yeah,
cool.
it's Rick's widow,
Okay.
Linda, and her son Rodney, and there's two other sons. That one of them's a lawyer, and the other one I don't know what he does.
Okay. When you guys split, was there any kind of was there a lot of tension there when you guys decided?
Yes, there was at first in the documentary. It made it sound like a great big deal, but it was a little tension for 2 or 3 years maybe.
Okay.
But pretty soon we were back working together again.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I like Rick. He was hard to work with because he wanted everything a certain way, and he treated people kind of shitty. If you learn how to get along with him or work with him, that's all okay.
How
And
much? Go ahead.
I was just going to say he had good ideas production wise.
Yeah.
And he was a great picker of songs.
Right.
And putting the song with the artist.
Yeah. Now, after that time you spent working with him, how much of this particular vision for a song, how much of that did got absorbed into your bass playing? So you'd have a specific idea. How much of that did you learn from Rick, and how did it impact your bass playing?
Well, Rick was a bass player himself.
Okay.
He played mandolin and fiddle, and played in an early rock and roll band. First time I ever saw him, he was playing a street dance in Sheffield, my hometown.
Yeah.
Just I guess like a flatbed truck or something like that, just out in the street, and there's a big crowd there. And I thought, wow, that guy's playing electric bass, because then it was rare. My bass was probably the third one I ever saw.
Right.
There was a local band here back when I was in high school, Hollis, Dixon, and the Keynotes.
Uh-huh.
And they were the first rock band from this area.
Okay.
And the bass player had a precision bass. And I remember at the time, I was probably 15 or 16 years old going and watching this band because I was one of those kids that stood out and watched the band.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's two guitars there. And I hear this boom, 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 boom. And then I hear the other guitar. And I thought, now which one of those is doing that? And
Yeah.
I watched it for a little bit before I realized that one of the guitars was bigger than the other one. And
Okay.
only had four. I mean, I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of hard to imagine that from 15 to in 10 years, I was playing on hit records.
I know. That's pretty. Now, when you were growing up, what was the music being played around your house? What were you exposed to in early childhood years musically?
Well, my father loved music and played the radio and the record player, and he liked kind of big band music,
Okay.
like Glenn Miller and
Sure.
all that stuff. But I have an older sister. She's 3 years older, and she brought home Chuck Berry or Little Richard or Elvis or something like that. So I started hearing rock and roll, and I thought, wow, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
More fun than that other stuff. And of course, my dad hated it.
Yeah. Of course.
But I started learning, when I started learning to play, I learned Jimmy Reed and Ray Charles and all these different people from the bands I was watching playing it. And then later on, I'd go find the record of it and think, well, they're not playing it quite right, but I could see where it came from. And I've got a huge record collection, and I'm pretty knowledgeable about popular or rock and roll and rhythm and blues.
Sure.
But I learned the bass pretty quickly. One of these bands, their bass player let me take his precision bass home, and I could work out bass lines pretty quick. And I kind of naturally knew when it would go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord and that stuff. And I don't know how I knew that. Maybe I just from hearing it so much.
Yeah.
And but I think that means that my ear was pretty good.
And maybe just overall intuition. I mean, after watching the documentary again last night, it seems like there was this kind of atmosphere where everybody was really intuitive and everybody was really well with just feeding off each other. And I know musicians are like that in general, but something specific about the music that was created there at Muscle Shoals, it seemed like it was everybody was really kind of connected to each other in an intuitive way.
We were really driven to cut music that we would hear on the radio.
Yeah.
And so like Booker T and the MGs with Duck and the Motown people, those are things that we heard on the radio a lot, and we wanted to be able to be heard on the radio as well.
Sure.
And that was, more than making money, we wanted to be able to be heard on the radio.
Okay.
Or recordings, and that was really big with our rhythm section. I mean, it was almost like life or death.
Yeah. And then how much after you guys would cut a record, the rhythm section, what were the talks the rhythm section had among each other about, like, making notes, or like, man, did you guys kind of self-analyze it and like, maybe this was cool, or next time, like, I like this thing, but check out this guitar tone or something?
Some of that, but mostly we were working so much that, like, we would cut something with the Staple Singers, for instance, and 3 months later it'd come out and it would be a hit record, and I'd forgotten.
Yeah.
But we were doing other stuff between the time we did it and the time it came out. So a lot of times we did analyze. We just went on to the next session.
Right, just doing it. What were some pitfalls along the way? What were some sessions that just were like, you'll always remember for just kind of not working out well?
I don't really remember too many. There was a producer who was originally from this area, but he was a Nashville producer named Buddy Killen, and he would bring Joe Tex down, and he would bring these different people down, and he brought this Cajun fiddle guy down. I can't remember his name now, but the session did not work at all. One of the few times that we just think we can't do this.
Yeah.
And there were some times that we were the wrong person, I think, or the wrong group. I'm sure, but there was never a time that we just felt defeated. But that one time, we just thought, man, we just can't do this.
With the Cajun guy?
Yeah.
He
would show us the songs, and we'd make our little chord charts and stuff. And then when he'd go to time to play it, he would change it. And he was just so difficult to work with that we just, man, forget this.
Yeah.
But that was very rare.
Sure.
Very rare. And we nearly always came away with something pretty good. I think when the session was over, I think the artist or the producer or whoever was in charge, I think they were happy.
I mean, you guys always kind of reinvented yourself with each artist, and I think that is a characteristic of all great session musicians, is they know how to reinvent themselves. Well, it was still keeping their own identity, but it's always about the artist they're playing with too.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, I've worked with Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard and all these country artists, but I'm not necessarily a country type person. I've played with all these different rock and rollers. I've played all kinds of music, and some of it you act like you know what you're doing. we do that a lot, and after a while, some of it we got pretty good at doing it, but we were convincing, I think.
Sure. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. The fake it till you make it thing. But you guys
Yeah,
were like in the process of making it and still faking it. Like,
Yeah,
that's funny.
absolutely. I mean, I worked with Herbie Mann of all people,
Okay.
and who's a jazz flautist. I
Yeah.
worked with all these different people, and a lot of times I just act like I knew what I was doing.
Sure. My favorite thing about Muscle Shoals is how socially progressive it was for its time with the integrated sessions in the South. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And that's one of my favorite things about that studio in history.
There's the South has gotten a really bad rap because of the racial problems, but I never witnessed any racial problems.
Sure. And it seemed like everybody there at the studio was in it for the music. And did that idea kind of permeate all of Muscle Shoals, the town itself?
Not necessarily, but it definitely did the music people.
Sure.
And this place gets pretty redneck sometimes.
Yeah.
But in the music, we knew that we had to be more. For one thing, me and my partners loved rhythm and blues,
right?
And it became almost second nature to us. And before we started recording, we played in bands that played that. Mm-hmm. When I was playing the fraternity parties and stuff, the music we played was the Temptations and Booker T and all that stuff. So we loved that. I got to work with Otis Redding.
Oh wow!
With him being a producer.
Okay.
And he was great. He produced Arthur Conley and some other people, but just him telling me, well, play this or do that. I learned so much from him. I still count him as one of my big influences. And he died so young. But I worked with Dwayne Allman. Dwayne Allman was a genius.
Yeah.
He died when he was 26 or 27.
Right.
He died too soon, but there's no telling what he would have done had he lived.
Sure. It's funny, man. I've throughout the world, these people with such a strong force of kind of spirit have passed on at a young age. And it's almost as if they were too much, like this spirit and this energy that they had were almost too much, kind of couldn't be contained almost.
Right. I believe that.
And it seems to be the case with a lot of musicians that all passed. Was he 27? Was he part of that 27 club?
I think 26 or 27. He was brilliant. He just, his playing, he was so good. And I mean, he worked with us in one of the early times when I was playing at Fame with the rhythm section, and he couldn't be held down. He didn't want to be a studio player. He didn't want to come in every day and do it and
have a job. Like he wanted to.
It was like what we were doing was like a regular job. He didn't want to do that.
Yeah. How did at what point did you ever feel frustrated with the studio thing and think it was too much of a regular job? And were you more interested in going out on the road more than you had been?
No, I mean, maybe every now and then I'd like to have gone on the road, but I like the studio. I really, to this day, I'd rather do that than play live.
Okay. What is it about the studio that appeals to you the most?
I like being able to, different stuff every day, for one thing. And I like to be able to try to make it sound like it's supposed to sound. I like that part of it.
The creative process of putting it together.
I mean, we learn the song from never have heard the song to recording it in a master quality. It's about an hour. I mean, we can learn stuff really quickly with our chord charts. We can put it together quickly. Yeah. But then once I've done it, I'm ready to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, you're right. You did it. Next. Yeah. What bass are you playing right now? What's your main bass?
This D Lake, and I don't know how well you can see it, but
I can. No, is that the same color? Is that when you took the finish off your Fender? Yeah. Is that the same color?
That's walnut. This is actual walnut, where mine was whatever they made them out of. But I stained it walnut, and the stain I used. I've got two stereo speakers in my living room that I use that stain. And I still play that stereo. I mean, I built I built that system in 1966, and I'm still using it. It sounds great.
Sure. Do
But I'm
you
also
collect? Oh, go ahead.
well, I'm also playing a Lakeland Joe Osborne model, which is based on a 1960 or 61 jazz bass with the static knobs. And I have people that don't want me to play anything else.
Really?
And they hate 5-string.
Yeah.
Some of the producers or engineers, they want my bass because they know all I have to do is turn it on and it sounds great.
Yeah.
I also have a active Lakeland. It's red, but it's active electronics, and I play it more live because you don't have to put so much effort into it to cut through the guitars and things.
Sure.
And what else? I've got a 56 P bass that sounds great. All my basses sound really good. I work on getting them to sound good. 56 P bass, a 56. Shit. 56 and a 57 P bass. Both sound, but one of them has got the 2 split pickups.
Yeah.
You can't see my hand, but and the other one has just the 1 pickup.
Sure.
I'm playing that Joe Osborne bass, and Dan Lakin gave it to me at a NAMM show, and it was pink. It was pink, burgundy mist, and he said, "Why don't you take that bass home with you?" And I didn't. I almost didn't.
Yeah.
And my wife nudged me and said, you ought to take that bass.
Okay.
And it took me about 2 years to get it to sound like I wanted it, and now it's the #1 bass.
What'd you do to it?
Not a whole lot. I even sent it back once because I thought you couldn't change the controls that much without it being noisy.
Yeah.
And finally, I figured out I was using too much. It had more treble than I was used to, and I finally learned to just roll that treble back a little bit.
Yeah.
What else am I playing? I guess that's it. I mean, I still have my Alembic bass, beautiful bass.
Yeah.
It sounds great. Everybody wants you to play a P bass.
Yeah.
If not a P bass, then a jazz bass. And so I try to do what they want me to do.
Yeah, of course.
Like I said, I have a Lakeland 5-string. I bet I hadn't touched it in 3 years.
Yeah.
I just don't have that kind of, I don't get called to use that. And some of the engineers and producers I work with, they hate them.
Yeah.
They think everybody stays down on that low end too much.
Oh, really?
They want it to sound like a bass.
Yeah.
I cannot think what else I'm playing. I guess that's it.
Okay.
I've got several basses, but I've got a G&L that has Les Paul's autograph on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was put on at the factory. I don't think he.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think he signed every one of them, but it's his autograph. What else do I have? I guess that's got to be it.
What are you doing amp wise? What are you playing for an amp?
When I play live, I use a Gallion Kruger something or another.
Okay.
I think that's a 410 cabinet, just one of those standard things that you get when you play live.
Yeah.
I rarely play live anymore. And in the studio, I don't even use an amp. We just go direct. I like to have an amp because they'll turn things in the control room where you can't hear the bass anymore or something. I like to have a little amp in there just so I can monitor myself.
Yeah. What do you have a specific DI box you use in the studio that helps you get? Because I know some DI boxes have like specific bumps at like 80 hertz or better for bass.
I've got a Demeter direct box, and I like it. And I don't, it's got a boost.
Yeah.
And then a regular.
Okay.
You can tell I'm not very technical.
Yeah, I've never really got into the gear thing. I have more lately. But
it's easy to collect just because it's kind of fun, I guess. But I've never really collected anything.
I didn't collect. I mean, I think if collecting, my collecting mind was always records. If I was going to collect anything, it was always recordings and hunting down recordings and checking out who's on the recording. And I was into that, but I never got into like pedals or all the gear stuff.
Yeah, I use a tuner.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
When I played with the Water Boys, they said, "Well, what kind of amp do you have?" And I said, "Well, I don't play live like this, so I don't have it." So they got me it's a Galleon Kruger. It seems like the name is 550 on the amp,
Sure.
and then a 4x10 cabinet. And when the tour was over, they didn't know what they were going to do with it, so I just kept it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the last show we played, or last show I played, was in Nashville, and so when all the equipment came back to Nashville, I got a friend to load it up in his car and bring it home, and I've got it. I leave it at one of the studios here in town.
Okay.
Because I can't move the thing, for one thing.
Sure.
So it stays at the studio, and I've got a Ampeg amp that has an 8-inch speaker. I think it's either an 8 or 6. I think it's an 8-inch speaker, and I use that when I'm at a studio and need to hear myself. I just take that in there because it's tiny.
Sure. And it's not gonna. You can set it up in a way to where the drum mics aren't going to pick it up.
All right, yeah. I can be in the room with all these other live players, and the acoustic guitar is louder than me.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so I don't worry about that.
Now, coming from this thing at Muscle Shoals, where you guys the band would work out the song with the artist, do you still prefer that versus a producer dictating what you should play? Like, what's your favorite process in the studio?
That what you first said. I like
the Muscle Shoals way.
Yeah, working out with the artist. But we have usually my preferred thing is have the keyboard player or somebody make us our simple charts that we use, and it's really 1, 4, 5, that kind of thing. They don't really tell me anything else, and we just work it out with the artist with what they're doing.
Okay. Who have been some of the easiest artists to work with besides
Bob Seger?
Bob Seger, that's right.
Yeah, he was easy because his songs are mostly 3-chord songs, and they're great songs. And it's kind of funny, since he quit working with us, he hadn't really had any big hits.
Yeah,
and I don't know whether maybe that style of music is gone, but on all his records, he would come to Muscle Shoals and play the songs. We'd make a chord chart, and we would cut the song, really first or second take kind of stuff. He'd take it back to Detroit and let the Silver Bullet Band, his road band, learn it from what we did.
Okay.
If they could beat it, then they would be on the record. If they couldn't beat it, we would be on the record. So about half his records is half us and half his road band.
Okay. So now, after having accomplished so much and you're on so many records, one, do you know how many records you've been on?
I don't have a clue. I couldn't even guess. It's so many.
Were you getting copies of them after they were released?
I used to, the record, you used to get DJ copies and everything, and I had a whole lot of them. Now, I don't even know whether they come out or not. Some of them,
sure.
Obviously they do, but I used to get records that I played on all the time. Now, I like the Sheryl Crow record. I had to buy mine.
Really?
Yeah, and when I found out that it was out, I didn't even know it was out.
Where'd you buy it? Did you buy it at like Target or Best Buy or like some kind of not even a record store?
No, we ordered it online. Amazon.
Okay. Yeah.
And but on it, there's all these great artists. They're singing on it, and then a lot of different musicians. And Sheryl herself is a really good musician. She can play bass and piano and guitar and everything. So some of the songs, she's the bass player.
Who produced that?
Steve Jordan. Jordan. And I love him.
Yeah.
I did a record a while back. I think it was with it's been about 10 years. It was a Steve Cropper record, but he covered all the 5 Royale songs.
Oh wow.
I don't know if you know who they are.
I know who they are. I'm blanking on song titles right now, but I know the name of the group.
I couldn't give you the song titles either, but on that session, Steve Jordan played, and also Steve Peroni, the guy that played. Yeah. And of those 2 drummers, I like Steve Jordan a whole lot.
Yeah.
Peroni might be a real good rock and roll drummer, but Jordan has the feel.
Yeah, absolutely. You said you were still listening to what was happening in Detroit and Memphis, and how much of this was because each of those 3 studios, Muscle Shoals, Stax, and Hitsville, they all had these house bands that were kind of looked at as like, this is the dream team. If we mess up this band, we don't make a hit. And so were you trying to learn from what they were doing so that you could make more hit records than them?
Well, yeah, a little bit. You mentioned Tommy Cogbill. He was in at a studio in Memphis called American Studios.
Yeah.
And it was him and Reggie Young and Bobby Emmons and Bobby Wood on keys and Gene Chrisman on drums. We followed them a lot.
Okay.
They cut so many hit records with so many different people, and we were big fans of theirs, and we would try to emulate them as much as we could.
Okay.
Dusty in Memphis is one of the things that Tommy Cogbill played on with the American Rhythm Section, and they almost brought Dusty to Muscle Shoals, and we were booked, so they took her to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it could have been.
So would that have been you on Son of a Preacher Man if you weren't already playing?
Yeah, I guess. And I flatter myself by saying that because I think it's such a great record. But Jerry Wexler, and that's another thing I guess I need to mention. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best producers ever.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily great musicians. Tom Dowd was a brilliant engineer, producer. I think he was a violin player or something.
Okay.
Actuality. So Tom Dowd, Jerry Wexler, the guy that produced Simon and Garfunkel, New York guy. He was a violinist too. Anyway, I've gotten to work with a lot of great producers.
Yeah.
And that's important because they bring the songs in. They may not know how to play themselves that much, but they have an idea and can get their idea across to you.
Sure. Is that something you ever got into, was producing?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Very little. We all tried to do that. The guys in the rhythm section all tried to do that. Jimmy and Barry were the more successful at doing, you can't do both really. If you either got to be a full-time musician or a full-time producer, it's hard to do both.
Sure. You preferred the bass playing. Yeah.
But you do the one song or the songs, you go home, and then the next day be some other songs. And I would get tired. When I produced, I'd work for weeks. You get the song or the track pretty quickly, but then you'd work for weeks getting the overdubs and the vocals and all that other stuff. And I would get tired of the song.
Yeah. Well, after anything, did you produce any hits?
No. As a rhythm section, we co-produced stuff we did with Bob Seger, and I still get royalties from that.
Oh, wow.
Even though we haven't done anything with him in years, I still get nice royalty checks.
Fantastic.
And we don't we shared 1 point.
Yeah.
Among the four of us, and it's still good enough you can go buy a car sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've got a bunch of gold records, some of them here and some of them at what was our last studio. I have an office down there, and it's got a bunch of gold records. Yeah. I've got the There Goes Rhyming Simon gold record. I've got Staple Singers. So I don't really have that many in this house, but a small house. Yeah. But I played on a bunch of hit records. Not so much anymore. I mean, people don't have hit records like they used to. I played on records that were #1 on Billboard, over a million seller. Nobody does that anymore.
Right.
Very few, because they don't sell records like that anymore.
Right. You have to be one of the most recorded bass players. I think you and Ron Carter are like the top two, if I'm not mistaken.
I think Leland Sklar has played on more hits than I have.
Oh, really? Hits or records, just in general?
Well, records.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see. You see my dog? Well,
I see the dog. What's the dog's name?
That's Blue. Blue. Yeah, okay. He's a standard poodle, and there's another one behind me that's a female, Jessie.
Okay. That didn't look like a poodle. That looked like a big dog.
He's a big dog. He's like 65 pounds, 70 pounds.
Yeah. I always think of small dogs when I think of poodles.
Everybody thinks of toy poodles, but those are toys. And mine are standards, and they're big.
Okay. So that's a normal thing for the poodle, is to be a...
Yeah.
Oh. Huh.
It's a big dog, though. lot of people don't have dogs that big.
Right. Okay, so like Lee has been on. I always
Gosh,
thought it was. I always thought
James
you were up there.
Taylor, just think James Taylor, Phil
Yeah.
Collins,
Yeah.
all big artists.
Man, he played bass on the Doors record, which I thought was cool because they didn't have a bass player, and then like Lee cut
right.
for the Doors. I always thought that was cool.
You know, Jerry Jamont, the bass player you've heard of, he played on a couple of the Doors stuff, I think.
Okay.
And he also played with the Rascals back early in his career. But the last time I talked to him, he was driving an Uber.
I heard he's a few years ago, this guitar player I was playing with, who had been in Ray Charles's band for the last 5 years of Ray's life. Him and I were on a gig, and he tells me that he had recently did a gig with Jerry Jamont.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jerry's playing again? I didn't even know Jerry was in town. Like I didn't know anything, I didn't know anything about Jerry or what he was up to. And apparently he was playing again, and I'm
good.
Try to track him down, and I'd love to speak with him.
I got his phone number.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
If you got a pencil, I'll give it to you.
Yeah. I'm gonna edit out Jerry Jamont's phone number.
All right. Yeah, I forgot you were recording.
Well, I'm recording, but I do edit these. It's not a live stream. We're fine. Man, on a personal note, where we're doing this, I always wanted to be the first jazz artist to cut a jazz record at Muscle Shoals.
Wow.
I've always wanted to do that. To get out of like the New York, to get jazz out of the New York, LA thing and put it in this place where both of those things, like in the middle, where all this music was happening, all this integration, all this rock, soul, black, white, all of it was melding together. I wanted to bring a jazz group to Muscle Shoals and see how that impacted jazz.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think. Why not? I'd love to do it at the old studio. Like you mentioned, it was a museum thing, but man, I'd love to be in that room. It's pretty surreal that I'm going to be programming Jerry Jamont's number into my phone.
Well, he's great. He was a great player. I mean, when he came and he played on he played on some Aretha Franklin records. That's how I met him.
Yeah.
And he did Hey Jude, the Wilson Pickett version of and that was a brilliant part he did.
Okay, so he played on that.
Yeah, he played on that, and I played on we both played on that album. Rick Hall at that time would get two of everything.
Yeah.
They'd have two bass players, and then one of them be sitting on the couch, and the other be playing, and then all right, you next. And so we both played on the same record, not the same song, but on the same album.
Sure. Now, in the documentary, the guitar player of the Swanmpers, Jimmy Johnson, I have his name correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He
was talking about when you guys worked with Wexler and were going to New York, and you guys were going to New York to work with Aretha, and they're playing the song Respect in the background. And it makes it sound in the documentary that you guys cut Respect. To my knowledge, that was Tommy Cogbill on bass. Did you play Respect, or did Tommy Cogbill play it?
That Tommy Cogbill. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's what I had thought, because I've transcribed the bass line, and that's another part of what I do is I transcribe all the famous guys and then teach famous guys style.
Yeah. Tommy Cogbill was great, but he was a guitar player who doubled on bass, and some of the best things he did were on bass. He's probably not known at all for being a guitar player, but his first love was playing jazz guitar.
Oh, see, I didn't know that was his. I knew he played guitar, but I kind of knew him more as for his work with Dusty and as a producer.
Yeah.
Tommy was fantastic, and I think he's one of the underrated guys.
Yeah. Well, he died too soon, really. And his name never really got out before he died.
When did he pass?
I couldn't tell you. Me and my partners chartered an airplane and went to Memphis to his funeral.
Okay.
But that was the the American Rhythm section.
Yeah.
And they had some great records and some great players. And all those guys are friends.
Sure.
The ones that are left.
Yeah.
Reggie Young passed away 2 years ago, and that was a tragedy because he was one of the best guitar players I ever worked with. His funeral was like a who's who of all the Nashville and Muscle Shoals and musicians.
Yeah. Did you were you pretty clean during all that? Were you boozing? Were you smoking? Were you pretty clean?
My partners all smoked cigarettes constantly, and
Okay.
I did.
Yeah.
I smoked a little pot. Me and Eddie Hinton, who was a great guitar player and songwriter and stuff, he and I would smoke in the basement of the studio when nobody else was.
Okay. Well, now if Rick caught you, would that be a problem?
It might have been, but I that didn't happen.
Okay.
In fact, the first time I ever smoked pot, James and Bobby Purify were recording, and they gave me and Roger a joint.
Yeah.
And we smoked it and just laughed, like the first time you get high.
Yeah.
it was that. And we were working with Rick, but he didn't know we had done that.
Okay.
That would have been about 1967, 66.
Okay. Man, so much great music came out in 1967. When I look at iconic bass lines and hit songs, and I realized how many of them all happened within just a few months of each other in 1967. If you can recall 1967, what was so special about that? What was 67? Like, it seemed to be this like magical year where Detroit was on fire, Memphis was on fire, Muscle Shoals, like everybody was just creating this
I don't know
music.
Music is a reflection of the public's taste in some way. And I don't know, maybe there's a lot of great music being recorded.
Yeah.
I can't tell you there's a lot of great music being recorded now, but you turn on the radio, there's something going all the time.
There's something going on. I mean, I don't know. I think I was just talking with a friend last night about this, and it's something I speak about regularly, is since the introduction of the internet, music has suffered. I think.
Yeah.
I think the genres don't have the same personal and cultural identity that they once had. It's now everything was run together and everything sounds like this, but country sounds like R&B but with a fiddle, or like R&B sounds like rock but with something else. And which in a sense is good, but I like when everything had its a very specific genre identity, and it reflected the culture that it came out of.
Yeah, there's some current music that I like. I just got to. Anyway, they were announcing Bonnaroo, the festival.
Okay.
And I hate crowds and I hate loud music, but there were several artists that were playing, and I'd love to see some of those artists.
Yeah.
See if I who they are. It might have been Facebook or something. I don't know. Anyway, Bonnaroo, the festival is between here and Nashville. And my daughter has gone and camped out. I wouldn't want to spend the night in a dirty, dusty place because they never go to bed. They sleep. I mean, they played music all night long. I would hate that. But I love the artists they were.
How far is Muscle Shoals from Nashville?
About 120 miles.
That's not bad at all. That's like LA to San Diego. That's super close.
Today's my 33rd anniversary, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, my second wife.
Okay.
A very happy marriage.
Fantastic. Happy anniversary. And you told me her name at the beginning. What's her name again?
Judy.
Judy. Happy anniversary, Judy. Thank you for
she's no longer here.
Yeah.
But my first marriage, I got married the first time I was 20.
Okay.
And
that's
so
young.
Actually I was 18.
Okay.
I'm 20 years older than my son. So now that means he's 56, 57.
Yeah.
And I'm working with people younger than him now.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Most of the people I work with are younger than him.
Is this your son, the son that lives in Portland?
Yes.
You only have the son and the daughter?
That's it. And they were with my first wife, and my first wife and I, it was a marriage made in hell. She was a substance abuser, and I wasn't terrible, but I tripped and smoked pot and drank and everything.
Did you do it recreationally, or did you did it get a little crazy?
No, I never really got that crazy, but she did.
Okay.
And it eventually caused our marriage to fall apart.
Sure.
She had a lot imaginary health issues and some real health issues. And so she would get these drugs from these different doctors. I mean, I'd see jars this big of Quaaludes.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
what doctor will give you a jar full
Yeah.
of 100 Quaaludes? I mean, what she was able to do that. She manipulated these doctors to give her just about anything she wanted.
Oh,
She
wow.
would she would get these horrible headaches or this or that, and I'd have to take her to the emergency room and to get a shot, which meant Demerol or
How long
something.
did that marriage last?
It lasted a little over 20 years.
Oof,
And
that's okay.
it was horrible. It was terrible.
How did that affect what'd you do with that kind of drama at house? And then you have to go play on these hit records. Were you able to was music your savior, or could you just tune it out?
I would try to tune it out. It was really hard, and she resented my working.
Okay.
You know, it meant I couldn't be at home and doing whatever she wanted.
Right.
And it was terrible. And people say that they've never seen me so happy as I've been the last 33 years, because I'm with somebody I really care about now, and we share interests. We don't have any children together, but we have my children from the former marriage and now grandkids and stuff.
Cool.
I've got a great marriage. I'm very proud that I've made it.
That's great. That's great, man. Congratulations on that.
Appreciate it.
I know Rick had a lot of hardships in his life. Were you two able to connect on that when you're in this really poor marriage? Did this kind of bond you guys a little bit?
I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know why. The reason I stayed as long as I did is I didn't want to look like a failure, I think.
Sure.
And I didn't want to leave my kids with her.
Yeah.
And so it was only after my daughter she's 45, I think. I didn't want to leave her until she was in high school or almost out of high school. And I think that made me stay much longer than I should have.
Yeah. But then when you left, and you're just like, this is
And Jerry Wexler performed our wedding ceremony.
With your wife Judy right now? Okay.
My mother lived in Sarasota at that time.
How far away is that?
It's about 600-700 miles. It's halfway down Florida on the Gulf Coast side.
Okay.
Near Tampa.
Yeah.
Anyway, my mother lived there, and Wexler had a home there. Yeah. And so I wanted to get married. My mother by that time was losing her eyesight. She had macular degeneration. And I wanted for her to be at my wedding, and Wexler was there. And so I asked him if he'd perform a wedding ceremony. He cheerfully did it. He wasn't, I had to get legally married at the courthouse, but he performed a little ceremony on a paddle wheel boat in Sarasota Bay.
That's awesome.
And my mother got to go, and
that's cool.
Had a party at his house that night, and he had a Chinese couple that lived in his house that cooked and cared for him and his wife. And I had some great friendships with those people, Jerry and a lot of the producers. Tom Dowd was a really good friend as well. He was a great record producer. And those things I owe my career to. The reason I've been able to work with all these great people is I was working with record producers who produce those people.
Right. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What was go ahead.
You were asking me about Rick or producer telling me. I heard Clarence Carter. Etta James did "Tell Mama" before "Tell Mama." Clarence Carter did "Tell Daddy." It's the same song, just changed the gender. And Tommy Cogbill played on "Tell Daddy," and I heard it. I thought, God, that is just great. And so when we cut Etta James, same song, Rick made me change the bass line to dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
Almost like what's on Midnight Hour. You know, it was 1 to 4, 1 to 4, where the original was just 1 1 1 1 1 1. Rick made me change it to that, and I just hated it. I thought, God, I hate this. But it was.
Hold on 1 second, David. I got to go move my car. Hold on 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I was blocking somebody in the parking lot there.
Yeah, I'm a car lover myself, so I'm a,
What's your car? What are you driving?
well, right now I'm driving a Volkswagen GTI. It's kind of a
Okay.
Golf with hotter engine, but I've got that I bought new, a 1971 Porsche 911E.
Oh
And,
man.
and because of my shoulders right now, I can't drive it because I can't physically shift the gears and steer it.
It's a manual.
Yeah, it's manual,
Yeah.
5 speed, but it's just hard car to drive when you don't have your shoulders.
Yeah. Right. When do you go see the doctor about that? When is that?
Well, I had an EKG about a week and a half ago, and the EKG, they said, well, now that they've seen the EKG, they say I need to do a stress test.
Okay.
And so I do that the 7th, I think, of
All
this
right.
month. You won't believe. I mean, you could write a book on just the things I've done physically, but I had a back situation, and they fused L4 and L5 in my back several years ago, and I started having a lot of problems, and so I went back to the doctor that did that, and he said, "Well, you need a laminectomy," and that's where they clean out the scar tissue in your spine.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Oh.
and when I got through with that, I was in such horrible pain, constant. I could barely walk. I hurt so bad that a doctor here in town who is a pain specialist sent me to a guy in Huntsville, which is about an hour away from here, and they put in my back neural stimulator, and it's a device in my back that have 2 wires going from it up my spine, and it canceled the pain signals going from my back to my brain.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and to do that, I had to go through all these tests, including psych tests and everything to do that. But it has worked. I'm not pain free, but I'm able to function fairly.
But how does it work? Like if you walk too long, or if you sit in one place for too long, does your lower back get tight? Like, do you need to do stretching regularly? What else do you need to do to kind of keep some health things happening?
All that. I walk every day. And, and I try not to stand too long.
Sure.
But it was so bad that I was going to be a cripple.
Oh.
I have a cane by every doorway.
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't need it now, but I needed it before I had this thing put in my back.
Okay.
And so this shoulder thing I'm going through is another one of these damn adventures that I don't really want to be a part of, but I'm going to have to do something, because pretty soon I have no upper body strength.
Sure, but your range of motion, like you just put your arms up right there. Yeah, you got range of motion, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good, but I have no strength.
Yeah.
I can't, like, if I lifted a potted plant up off a shelf or put a jar on the top shelf, I can hardly do it.
Yeah.
And I used to be really strong. Yeah. And it's just because I had both these shoulders fucked up.
Have you ever thought about, or maybe talked to your doctor about, just getting like a 2-pound medicine ball and just go through like some daily activities?
Yeah, I do that. I've got these rubber bands that I stretch, and I walk your hands up the wall.
Yeah, I remember having to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm supposed to keep on doing it, and I do it as much as I can. But sometimes you're busy doing something else.
Yeah, and you don't always remember. I remember when I was in the hospital, it was like I'd always have this nurse come in and make me do it every day, and
and it's great when they're not there coming in and making you do it. You forget.
Yeah, you forget. It's like any other thing. Man, this has been great. I hope let's do it again. Let's have another interview sometime.
Yeah. I'd love it. I've had fun.
All right, that was my talk with David Hood. Connecting with him was really kind of a highlight for me. I mean, I grew up listening to him play before I knew who he was, or before I was even playing the bass. Like, that music that he was a part of was so formative to me. It was being played around my house growing up. So it was an absolute honor to be able to connect with him. And I'm looking forward to having him back. I don't know, we'll talk about something, maybe we'll talk more about cars. I don't know, but I definitely want to have him back on, and we're gonna hear more from David Hood, I'm sure. Thank you, Dan Lakin, for connecting me. And thank you, David, for connecting me with Jerry Germont. I've been in touch with Jerry, and hopefully Jerry will be on the show very soon. That's another icon that I can't wait to speak with. Just the fact that he was the dude that interviewed Jocko on the DCI tape, right? And I'd be interviewing Jerry. Like, man, that's a lot. That's a lot for me to wrap my head around. Anyways. Thank you, David. Thank you, David, for taking the time to do the podcast. I had a blast, and that's about it, folks. That's all I got. I will catch you on the next one in a minute.